Most men want more clarity, more respect, more control over their lives, but few know how to get it. Welcome to the Bro Coach Podcast with Dennis Procopio, the founder of Man Up Life Coaching and the man behind thousands of transformed lives. Not red pill, not therapy, just the evolved man's blueprint for strength, presence, and purpose. Welcome to episode 11 of the Bro Coach Podcast, our first episode of 2026. Dennis, so happy to be here with you, man.
And I'm happy to be here as well, Andrew.
So I wanted to kick off 2026 with a pretty broad topic, but it's been a topic that has been on my mind all day. And I'm curious how you work with men as they start navigating one of the key things that I think keep men from doing great things, and it's fear. I remember a story you told me about a client they were working with where he was navigating a hard conversation at work, and there's those voices in our head where we get stuck because, we don't necessarily call it fear because it's what pussies do, but
yeah, right.
How as a coach, and obviously, you work with 40 guys a week or more on a one-to-one basis. What's your approach as navigating guys right now, or they want to do big things, they maybe just failed their New Year's resolution, and it's probably because of fear?
Fear is a giant topic, dude. I don't know how to answer it without immediately going down the woo-woo rabbit hole that I seem to always end up down when we start off high level like this. But I guess I'll go there because, I don't want to underestimate the collective intellect of our audience. Fear. What is fear? I think at a base level, fear is a message that says you're in danger, right? And so if you're lobotomized and you don't have fear, then you're just an imbecile who's just, stepping off the ledge into the abyss and like lemmings, and dying or getting hurt or experiencing suffering of some kind because you lack foresight. So when that amygdala starts to kick in and say, yo, Jack, I'm not sure that's a great idea, you listen. In fact, anybody who knows me knows that I love quoting Malcolm Gladwell's now iconic book, Blink, in which he talks about how we have these split-second reactions to stimulus that are, I guess I'd arguably say, pre-conscious. I was going to say precognitive, but that's not exactly right. They're pre-conscious. They're subconscious. So you've experienced this. You're crossing a street and something says back up, and you do, and you avoid getting hit by a bus. And then your conscious mind catches up and you're in shock because something inside of you grabbed you by the nape of your neck and pulled you back. Right. So the problem becomes when that signal is accurately indicating that something is a threat, or when that signal is warning you of a non-threat. Here's an example. I always see these reels where you see people like crawling across some glass bridge that's up really, really high. And it's like, would you walk across this bridge? Now they know that structurally the architecture is sound, but there's still some part of the brain that says, I am not wired to be comfortable with this, And so what we have to do in those situations is we have to whitelist that event and say, I know that this seemed like it's going to kill you, but it turns out this is okay. So I do not subscribe to the idea that fear means you're pussy, in, standard male lexicon, I do think, however, that the difference between being brave and just being a lobotomized moron is recognizing that there is potential risk, calculating the risk, deciding if it's worth the risk, getting the skill set up necessary to get to the other side of whatever that challenge is, and then either doing it or not. Does that hit for you?
Yeah, I'd love to hear some examples.
Okay, right away. So I'm going to start with a really simple example. I'm going to start with an example where there is no obvious... No, let me go the other way. Let's talk about these guys who do parkour, right? There is a point at which these dudes who do parkour start taking it further and further, where the risk is a broken wrist. And then, they up the challenge because they're trying to make content or they're looking for that rush. And the risk is bad. Let's just say it. The risk is fatality. And it's one of those things where if you really, really train yourself to think about the goal and not the what if, in theory, you should be able to do that thing. In theory, you can jump 3 feet. Hold on, my iPhone, every time I use the word theory, she thinks I'm going into Mike Tyson mode. And my phone activates. True story. Anyway, I digress. So an example of a guy overriding his fear in a place where his fear is absolutely warranted would be a guy, well, okay, I have a Jeep. I like to go off-roading. I push it. I push it. I have had moments where I am at a tipping point in my Jeep, and the only difference between me rolling off the mountain or not is a combination of skill and luck. So why do that? Because I am admittedly something of a thrill seeker and I take calculated risks. What is the result of doing that? It gives you the rush that says, I think you might be able to do more than you imagine you're capable of. What is the downside? The downside is you might pull the whoopsie card out of the deck, and now you have to deal with that. But let's take a different thing. I had a client, this is going a while back, I've been doing this for a long time. I had a client back in, I want to say like 2014, 2015. And this dude's jam was that he is an outfitter, a hunting outfitter. So he gets guys together who know how to hunt, and they want to go on a Canadian safari, and they want to come back with a bearskin rug, a big pair of moose antlers, fill up their freezer, a lynx that they can taxidermy, a wolf, whatever. And so when I first met this guy, he was probably the most hardcore, like man, with his beard and his little cap and his guns and his he's the dude literally took his screens out so that he could shoot squirrels from his couch without having to go outside. Like, this is the lifestyle this guy was living. In our first session, he couldn't have sat further from the screen or been buried deeper under his hat visor or into his beard. And I was like, you shy, bro? And he's like, yeah, I'm terribly shy. And I was like, really? You just got done telling me a story about getting out of your car and literally grabbing a handful of gravel and throwing it at a grizzly bear so it would get out of the road. And it's kind of a choose the bear situation. He's like, yeah, I'm not scared of bears, but I have a phobia of public speaking and I don't like to share. I was like, an alpha dude like you? He's like, oh, I'm not an alpha. Don't call me an alpha. I'm like, you're not an alpha? You just some pretty alpha shit. He's like, I'm not an alpha. I don't want to be an alpha. I'm like, wow. And that was like one of the first times I ever interacted with a guy who did the most scary, manly shit like on the planet, but had a white-knuckled, heart-racing fear of communicating with other people. And in that situation, what is the amygdala telling him is going to happen? Where's the threat? You see what I mean? So it's situation. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. Because it's funny where I mean, one of the things in common I know with a lot of the clients that you have is they're super smart guys, right? Where they're great at analysis. They're great at, knowledge and technical stuff. But I'm sure if there's, there's always that little weird fear toward as you say it out loud, almost a little embarrassing, where it's like, well, yeah, that, like the fear of spiders or fear of going up and, like, for me, like, when I was single, the going up and approaching a woman, to see if you can get a date with her, right? Like my whole life. And it's just, even saying it out loud is like, oh, that's kind of embarrassing. But, and it's all in your head. It's like, it's not something that are you going to die? No, you're not going to die.
Right. So back to the question of, like, you started out by saying, hey, I need to have a conversation with my boss, right? If I remember correctly, the situation in question was a guy who sort of felt sidelined after 8 years in a strong executive position. And his jam was that for his intelligence, and he's super bright guy, and his creativity, he's a really creative guy. And you don't find that. Like, he's a rare breed. He's a unique guy. If I play my cards right, he's going to be coaching for me. But anyway, so this guy came to the session and said, I feel that I have sort of been as squeaky of a wheel as I could be without being a whiner. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I don't seem to be communicating the urgency of wanting to take on more. I feel like I'm a Lamborghini making grocery runs, and I don't feel like I'm really operating according to my full potential. I feel like it does me a disservice because I'm kind of bored at my job. I feel like it does my team a disservice because they're looking to me for guidance, but I can't operate outside of my, scope. And I feel like I do the company a disservice because, they're paying me quite a bit. You'd think they'd want to get more out of me. How do I approach this conversation? And I said, I feel like what you just did there was pretty good. Why don't you say that? That's usually the best way to do it. And he's like, well, I just kind of feel like if I come in that way, that could be, corporate is a weird world. Once you've said it, you can't unsay it. So you have to really be careful what you say. And I said, what's the worst that could happen? Yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, since day one, I've told you that I'm really concerned about a job security and I don't want to rock the boat. I make a lot of money. Like, it's easier for me to play the conservative card than to signal that I might be, dissatisfied in some way. And next thing you know, people start changing stuff and I'm out of a job. And I wish I would have just shut the hell up. So this is less about strategy for having those conversations and more about the fear itself. What I said to him was, do you truly believe that you deserve what you're asking for? And he said, for the most part, I do. I mean, of course, there's the side of me that says, what if I fail? Boom. That's the difference between letting fear guide you or faith guide you. Because what guys tend to want is they want to walk into the job interview knowing they already have the job. They want to go show up to the date knowing that she's already like down to, ride. So it's be, guys, they want to have put so many reps in that when they throw that football, they know it's going to hit its target, right? That there's a 0% chance that they're going to get a pick six or whatever, and it's the fear of failure that really keeps guys from trying. So if we want to shift gears a little bit here, I can roll back to one of the most foundational codes built into my organization, Man Up Life Coaching, built into our ethos, which is, and as the bro coach, which is what this podcast is, I earned the name the bro coach because my approach to coaching men was less therapy and more, hey, I'm in the trenches with you. So if I haven't done it, I don't coach it, So, and that usually gives people faith, right? So the ethos is held together by some keys, like some keystones. There's some pillars that hold it together. And one of them is the failure versus success grip. Now, part of my brain said, oh, man, you might have already mentioned this in another podcast. And another part of my brain said, I've been doing this for 13 years now, and nobody remembers this shit anyway. So I'm just going to run it back. Usually, guys, here's the failure script. You start out feeling that your value is associated with performance. And so it's provide, protect, perform. Because you don't feel that you're measuring up, you get pissed off at yourself because you don't feel like you're living up to your expectations. So that leads to rage. And you either send that rage and you're a toxic asshole and you get all the consequences of being a toxic asshole. Or you have nice guy syndrome and you just swallow it. This is fine. This is fine. This is fine. If you do the second thing, what happens is that you start to be lethargic and depressed. You start to burn out. You don't feel good about yourself. And so it starts to affect your confidence. You experience low confidence. Low confidence leads to risk avoidance. You just don't take risks. By avoiding risks, you start to believe it's what I always say is won't becomes can't. If you won't do something for long enough, you really truly believe that you can't do it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so the risk avoidance leads to stagnation. That's why the term stuck is such an important Google keyword. for life coaching for men because guys feel stuck. And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've failed. You're stuck. You're in a freaking infinite feedback loop of I want to, but I can't. I want to, but I can't. Right? So then if we go over to the failure script is literally the exact opposite. Excuse me. The success script, rather, is the exact opposite of the failure script. Where you were judging yourself and others, now you're validating yourself and others. Okay? Validation literally means getting your validation from the right sources rather than using dopamine to prop you up. So you see, guys, and I say this all the freaking time, and no matter how many times I say it, some listener's going to hear this and it's going to be a revelation for them, and they're going to go, I need to work with this guy. And it'll probably be somebody who's already worked with me, right? And they're going to be like, I never heard that before. Yeah, you can have, bro. If you're doom scrolling, it's because you're looking for validation. If you're looking for porn, like if you're edging out there, on Instagram, looking at butt and side boob, you're looking for validation. If you're scrolling through comments to see what somebody said, you're going to jump on board with whichever team says, this dude gets it. You're looking for validation. Wrong place to look for validation. Alcohol, weed, gambling. Look at how freaking gambling has become such a ginormous moneymaker these days, right? Like, all of a sudden, sports betting is crazy town, right? Because people are looking for that dopamine. They're looking for that rush. So, validation is, the one thing men going their own way as right, in my opinion, is removing yourself from women as a source of validation. What I call big titty in the sky syndrome. You're looking for the big titty in the sky, mommy, so that you can feel better about yourself. A woman does not want to be your goddamn emotional wet nurse. And if she does, you're in for some codependency. I promise you, because you're looking for a mommy, she's looking for a daddy. And what ensues is the stuff that reality TV is made of. So, real shit. So one, I'm not saying women suck, men are cool. I'm saying remove yourself, put yourself on a freaking moratorium for a minute, get your shit right, and get your sense of value, not your sense of value. Yeah, that's right. Work on your self-worth rather than your self-esteem. Work on your self-worth. Your self-worth is just your unconditional love for yourself. How do you do that? Validate your damn self. Look in the mirror and say, you're the man. But I don't believe it. Tough shit. Say it anyway. You're the man, you're the man, you're the man, you're the man, you're the man. You're cool, you're cool, you're cool, you're cool, you're cool. You got this. Validate your bro. Hey, Andrew, you're an awesome guy. Thanks, Dennis. So are you. Thanks, bro. Validate your brother. Validate yourself. Validate. And get away from people who are toxic and who try to cut you down. What happens when you validate? It leads to motivation. Weirdly, you're up at 8 a.m. or 6 a.m. or whenever you're, cock-a-doodle-doos, and you start doing stuff that's good for you, like exercise, like taking a bath, like flossing your damn teeth, whatever. You start being motivated to do things that are healthy. Motivation leads to confidence. And now you feel good about yourself without having to panhandle for other people's validation or for dopamine. Confidence leads to, here we are, risk-taking. Now, what is the number one barrier to risk-taking? Fear. Okay? Risk-taking leads to change, and we're scared of change. Even when we know our current situation is fucked, we're still happier with the devil that we know because it's familiar, right? But risk-taking leads to change, and change creates, and that's a critical word, creates opportunity. You show me somebody who's successful, I will show you someone who went through this very specific process to create opportunity. They took the risks that created the change. They got the confidence because they believed in themselves and they validated themselves. Now, let's get to the fear piece. Fear versus faith. Well, I don't know, for the comic fans out there who know the Killing Joke, there's this moment between Batman and the Joker where they recognize that they're both kind of nuts, and that's what sort of binds them. They're both outliers. They're not normal. And the joke at the end of the comic is, you know, the guy's escaping in an insane asylum, and the one guy says, how are we going to escape? He says, well, I'm going to turn on this flashlight and you can walk across the beam. And then I'll walk across the beam too, and then we'll be free. And the first guy says, nah, I don't trust you, man. How do I know that when I'm halfway across, you won't turn off the flashlight and make me fall to my death? So if you're in a situation where it's faith over fear, I do not suggest that you have faith in the impossible. Walking on a beam of light is impossible, at least in our current physics scenario. But walking across a tightrope isn't. Walking a slack line isn't. How do you get the confidence to take the risk? You take the risk first. That's it. So what is the trick to having faith over fear? I don't even need you to say what you have faith in. I have some guys that'll say Allah. I have other guys that'll say Hashem. I have some guys that'll say God. I have some guys that'll say Jesus Christ. I have some guys that'll say physics. I have some guys that'll say some druid shit. I have some guys that'll say the flying spaghetti monster, but the reality is, if you have faith that transcends your fear and you take a calculated risk and you step out on that faith, anything that you learn from that is going to only make your next time better. Does that make sense? That was a bit of a TED. But does that make sense? Well, that's what I do for a living. Does that make sense?
You are a bit of a monologuist at times, you know, but...
Well, it's what I got to do, man. These people were paying to hear the truth, or in this case, not paying. But what are your thoughts on that?
Hey, man, stop spinning your wheels. If you're serious about leveling up your career, your relationships, and your mindset, it's time to man up. At Man Up Life Coaching, we cut the excuses and build discipline, confidence, and purpose. Book your free strategy session now at manuplifecoaching.com/application. Don't fill it out if you're not ready to grind, but if you are, this call could change your life. Man Up Life Coaching, elite life coaching for men by men.
I mean, the reps part makes a lot of sense to where it's like, you just have to do it. And I think the one part where, I mean, at least for me, at least the benefit of having a coach to where it's like, sometimes you need to borrow someone else's faith if your faith is so low, right? Like, or if you're just kind of in an area that's new to you, or you're like, I've never been there, but this guy has. So it's kind of like paying for the shortcut bit, right? When it comes to like risk taking it. Where it's like, well, I've been there. You haven't been there before, but I've been there, and just trust me, do this. Right? Like, okay, man, it scares the shit out of me, but you've done it. That's what I'm paying you for. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here and having that moment of like, okay, well, I don't have it, so I'm going to borrow your faith. And I think some people, you know, they have that through their spiritual life and that kind of stuff, where it's like, well, it might not be, you know, their faith and their confidence. They're kind of borrowing it, right? But the thing that I think is really important is the action part, to where it's like, well, you just got to do it. Like, you just got to be able to take that step and invest that rep and, take that step onto that slack line or tightrope line.
Yeah. So here's the one thing that is the companion to that first piece that I just said. The first piece that I just said was validate yourself, which will give you motivation to just start getting things in motion. Like, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Just start doing stuff. Your confidence will go up when you stop seeking dopamine from external sources and you really just lock in. You will go from risk aversion to a willingness to take risks, and that will lead to risk seeking. But now there's this other thing, which is, and I hear this a lot, this is where men have a tendency to put themselves in two different camps. That guy's an alpha stud and I am a beta bitch. You hear this all the time. Like, I have guys who will literally tell me that they're a pussy. And I'm like, wow, talk about arguing for your limitations. Like, nah, we got to change that language, man. And so one of the examples that I've used historically in my coaching is my fear of rodents. Like, I'm trying to tell you, I was terrified of rodents, dude. And I don't know how to make it more clear how visceral this fear was, except to say that if I saw a rat, and I know it has to do with my childhood, with my mom, with seeing her reaction to rodents, with the fact that I was raised inner city. So our rats weren't just, country rats. They carried knives and smoked cigarettes, So they were these Norway rats that really, with the intelligence of a 5-year-old, they'd gang up on you and you're in trouble. And they knew that you knew. It was a whole thing. And so, yeah, I was terrified of rats. And at one point in my life, I decided that I needed to overcome this fear of rodents because it was messing with my meditation. I couldn't close my eyes without imagining a rat climbing into my mouth or something. Like, it was really wacky how badly this manifested. I didn't like sitting on the toilet because I was afraid a rat was going to come up through the pipes. Which happens, I was afraid to go to sleep because anytime I felt something that felt like something moved in bed, I'm like, it's a rat. A rat's coming to get. I had this nutty thing about rats. And so I was like, all right, I got to get out of this trap. So I went to a pet store with a girl that didn't have a phobia of rats or rodents. And she helped me for my first time to hold a rat. And I'm here to tell you, I almost fainted, man. Like, I really did. And I'm like, I'm wearing a shirt right now as we're talking that says Man Up Life Coaching, the bro coach approach. And I'm here to tell you, I'm a big, strong, grown-ass man. My hands turned numb and cold, and I was absolutely terrified. There is no level of terror that a human can experience that was any worse than what I felt. Well, my act of bravery was I bought this rat. I bought all the accoutrement. I brought this thing home. And eventually I developed a relationship with this thing. So it would run in and out of my shirt. It would sit on my head. And we became buddies. And to this day, if I see a rat now, I have permanently rewired my phobia. That fear isn't there anymore. What did I risk? I risked having whatever I imagined was going to happen. So the question becomes, I have guys who will fight for their limitations. They argue for their limitations. They'll say, you don't understand. I have a guy who has hyperhidrosis. His hands sweat. And he's like, you don't understand the anxiety that I have in the office of having to pick up paper because it's going to get saturated and I'm going to have to hand it to somebody. You don't understand the anxiety I have at how hot and wet and just funky my body becomes when I'm nervous. You don't understand. And so, of course, it's psychosomatic. The more he worries about it, the more of a self-fulfilling prophecy becomes. Well, working through it. Result, it is significantly less than it used to be. Is he your word? No, it's a process. But my point is, a feeling is something that you feel. So if you feel a racing heart or any other error, sit with that. It's appropriate. An emotion is something that you emote. So if terror isn't working for you, pick a different emotion. The one I always suggest is peace. Just be cool. Channel your inner Big Lebowski. Like, I'm good. And watch your self-talk. Because your self-talk is going to try to justify why this is the wrong emotion to choose and why you're in terrible danger and why the suboptimal emotion is the right one to choose. So when you can separate a physical feeling from an emotion, which is not something you feel, it's something that it's a verb, you emote. It's something that you choose and that you execute. And when you can recognize that the self-talk that you couple with the emotion as a justification for why you're linking it to the feeling is also either habitual or is designed to reinforce an outdated or outmoded habit, then you can get in there and you can change it. And being able to change that is the beginning of your liberation from crippling habit. And that is true self-mastery. Now, I kind of want to drop the mic on that. But it's my mic and I paid a lot for it, so we're not going to do that. But do you hear what I'm saying?
Yes, I definitely hear what you're saying. It. I want to just, again, reiterate something, or at least circle back to something you said earlier, because many men are stuck in the doom scrolling mode. And they may not even know why they're doing it, right? Like, they may not have made that connection to like, okay, well, hey, I'm doom scrolling because, it feels good or because I'm bored, right? Like, but, and maybe I'll play devil's advocate a little bit to where it's like, okay, well, is really doom scrolling connected to fear? Like, I see the connection, obviously from the conversation that we've had, but I think it just warrants revisiting.
Exploration? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think that is, you went through it really fast, right?
Okay.
Where I think it'd be worth, going back there and be like, oh, hey, like, at least this is a symptom, right? Where it's like, there's so many people that are doom scrolling, right? There's a reason why these algorithms suck you in for even the best of us for, you think it's 5 minutes and all of a sudden it's 45 and you're like, holy shit, I just missed picking my kid up from school because I got stuck watching some booty shaking or some sports outtakes,
Mm-hmm. So I recognize, let me tell you my own experience with doom scrolling. I have a very addictive personality. If I do anything, I'm all in on it. Which is why I have to be careful of habits like having an off-road rig, because depending on what I've chosen, it can become expensive, But with doom scrolling, what I see is there are certain personality types, and I find men really fall into this category. The average guy in my organization, or I'll go further than my organization. I'll just say the average guy who satisfies my demographic, right? He's a dude who, let's say, gets up in the morning, and from the moment he's up, he's got stuff to do. Let's assume that either he has a job that doesn't let him dick around on his phone or his computer too much, or he does. He may be somebody who in the middle of his day told himself, I'm going to work for 7 hours straight, but then he took a little me break and he started scrolling, and the next thing you know, he just chunked an hour out of his time. So now he's going to have to work to 8 o'clock to catch up for that time, or he's going to shut down at his regular time, but he's going to feel guilty because he knows he wasn't as productive as he could have been. I have that client. I have lots of clients like that. More often than not, they're ADHD, but either way, I have that client. Or there's the client who says, I'm going to just get through my work day. I'm going to do whatever it is that I do. Maybe he's a doctor or something. Maybe he's in an environment where it's not convenient for him to doom scroll, so he literally is restricted. But he gets home. Maybe he spends some time with girlfriend or wife. Maybe he spends some time with kid or kids. And then at some point, it's me time. Everybody's asleep. He's got some me time. He's on the couch or wherever. And he says, oh, let me just snuggle in like a teenager, with my snacks and my little blankie and my little device. And let me go and let me do some things that make me happy. Let me go visit all my friends. And he's got all of his little places that he likes to go. Well, now, these guys aren't getting paid $300,000-$400,000 a year, these software devs, for nothing. That shit is engineered to figure out what gets your attention and holds your attention. So if a guy starts out just scrolling randomly, the algorithm is quickly going to learn, okay, he likes big butts and he can't lie. He likes freaking, he seems to be interested in river monsters and any video that shows big, gnarly, deadly fish getting caught. Okay, he seems to like trucks with big tires going up rocky mountains. He seems to like, any video that some dude, Alex Hormozy or Tom Bilyeu or whoever, talking about, here's how to make all the money, here are the 6, tricks that Mr. Beast will never tell you, or whatever. And the next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. And he's like, damn it. So at first blush, the motivating leading emotion doesn't seem to be fear. It seems to just be, hey, I'm going to just hunker down and play with my toys, and I'm going to cuddle up with my little, my little super calculator that's connected to all the cool shit in the universe, the big cosmic digital library of Alexandria. How lucky am I? But, the commodity these days is attention. These apps want your attention. And like any other drug, the more you lean into it, the more exhausted you are when you're done with it. Anybody who has doom scrolling habits knows what a freaking doom scrolling hangover feels like. So then we go back to asking, then why do you keep doing it when you finally know and accept and to admit it is a bad habit? That's where the rubber meets the road right there. And the answer is, I need the dopamine. And the question is, why do you need the dopamine? And the answer is, because I lack confidence and validation. I don't feel that I'm living up to my full potential. And this is escapism. You cannot show me escapism without showing me either fear that you're aware of or fear that you're hiding from, like a drawer full of unpaid freaking utility bills. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. Like, what am I distracting myself from? And then, like, just and taking that leap to ask that question, right? And having, this prompt, like maybe this we had, 500 dudes just hear that and be like, oh shit.
Right.
And all right.
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 Which is why I'm hoping that the guy listening to this is also taking a walk so that he's getting his stupid 10,000 steps in or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I hope he's listening to this and swinging a freaking 24 kg kettlebell. I hope he's listening to this and freaking sanding down some freaking woodworking project that he's got going. Right? I don't want him sitting here listening to this, looking at our stupid faces, going, while he's thinking, crap, they're right. I get because now I'm your drug dealer. That's ironic, right? Because admittedly, I want attention too. But I want to be along with you for the ride as you're taking a chance. So hopefully, as you're listening to this, you're doing pull-ups off a flagpole 300 feet in the air with no safety net. No, maybe not. But it's a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. We're a little bit of a drug dealer because we want you to, find us on social media and that kind of stuff, but don't get stuck there.
Yeah, don't get stuck there. Get inspired and then get the hell out of here and go do stuff. But also, you may have friends who relate to this stuff, and you might be like, hey, you got to check this guy out. And he maybe just listening to the podcast gives somebody a feeling of being understood. Or, tools that we take for granted in this culture, this might be brand new to somebody, and that might be enough to make them go, yeah, that's it. I'll tell you what I did. I do not sponsor this product in any way. So if the kid makes money from it, God bless him. But I recently downloaded an app that was in my Instagram feed that was called Push. And the way Push, it doesn't blow off the tongue. But I think that the dev is originally like a Spanish speaker as his first language. I think his name might be like Mario Ortiz or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But young guy, I wish him well. I want him to have a successful app. And I think this app is super cool because basically what happens is you get to pick which apps this thing blocks. And so for me, of all the stupid apps, I'm embarrassed saying this, but whatever. I'll be vulnerable. My top 4 apps are the Meta products because that's where I operate in my business. So Instagram and Facebook. Also a sneaky little app called Pocket Chess because it's chess tactics, and another app called Cribbage Pro. And between those 4 apps, I will loop for like freaking hours if there isn't somebody to come along and give me a reason not to. I have to be really careful with it because of my addictive personality. I'm like self-regulating because I'm trying to deal with stress. I could be reading a book. I could be meditating. I could be taking a walk. So I downloaded this app, and what the app does is it basically gives you limited minutes. And when your minutes are out, you have to do push-ups, planks, or squats to get some more minutes to keep doing the thing. And you set it up, and it has a little skeleton of you, like you can see you doing your exercises. dude, I'm 55 years old and I'm here to tell you I will drop and do 50 push-ups right now. No problem. Because this app has got me jacked. So I don't want to suggest that you don't have the right to play with your toys. I do want to say that you should do it in moderation. And if you recognize that you're having trouble with self-discipline, maybe think of a clever little way to offer yourself a reward system. That's a good one. How's that sound?
Yeah, I love it. And obviously we're coming near the end of the podcast. And one of the things that you said is that change creates opportunity. And I mean, that's kind of the vibe we're in, obviously, beginning of 2026. Everyone's like, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. And at some point, hopefully you're still changing stuff and taking that action and pursuing that opportunity. But I feel like, that's as we hit that quote from you and, play the men off stage on closing this thing out.
Okay, so what's the question?
Question is what can we leave the men with on this topic
of change, creating opportunity? Okay, so how do I reverse? If I'm a dude listening to this and I want opportunity, how do I reverse engineer everything that I've heard to get the opportunity? Change. Change does create opportunity, and risk creates change. Or risk, I should say, taking risks guarantees change because you're mixing it up. I said to a client recently, I want you to start taking risks. And I said, they don't have to be, hey, dude, today I, swam naked with tiger sharks or did some, jackass shit. It could be just as simple as I got up at a time that was really hard for me just to say I did it. No other reason. I quit drinking coffee today. Just for no reason. It wasn't even a problem for me. I just decided it was a good pattern interrupter. I shaved my beard just to show the world what my unbearded face looks like. I went out and I bought a freaking pink button-down shirt to wear to my next date with my wife. And bro, I'm the last person in the world who would ever wear pink. I took a completely different route to work with no idea if I was going to get lost or not. Here's one. I left my phone home. Oh my God. Like so little risks, whatever they are, anything that creates change might have a blessing in there that creates an opportunity, and success follows opportunity. So don't think as literal as, I need to change my job. Maybe you just need to change your shirt. If you put your shirt on first, start putting your pants on first. I don't know, just mix it up, bro, so you don't become a caricature of yourself. Don't limit yourself. You are a product of the choices that you've made, but you are not destined to make the choices that you have made, because history proves that you are the choices that you make. That's how you get gridlock. Take risks, do different things. Can I get an amen?
Amen, brother. I think that's a mic drop, man. So
okay,
where we're at.
All right. Well, on that note, lay us off stage, Andrew.
Well, if you like this, make sure you follow us on social media. We'd love for you to share a review on your favorite podcast player. The reviews are how you can share this with people and other men like you and get the value out of it.
Yeah, let me simplify that. I want traction. Share this with your bro, man. Get this shit out there. I'm Dennis. I'm the bro coach, Man Up Life Coaching, all of that. I've been doing this for going on 14 years now. And we have not only a podcast, but a culture that you might just fit into. So if you feel like a guy doesn't have a community, maybe this is the community. So keep listening, like, share, follow, do all that crap that Andrew said, and we'll see you on the next one.